Let me tell you about four people. Robert is 68. He worked hard his entire life, bought a home in the suburbs back in the 80s, raised a family, and by every measure looked like he had it all figured out. And honestly, for a long time, he did. Karen is 52, two kids, a solid career in marketing, a nice car, and a vacation every year. Look at her life from the outside and you'd think she was crushing it. Then there's Marcus, 38. Avocado toast jokes aside, this guy grinded, slowly chipped away at his student loans, watched his friends buy homes he couldn't afford, and spent his weekends at brunch and weekend getaways because, honestly, what else was he saving for? And finally, Zoe, 24. She's got a TikTok, a side hustle, a Stanley Cup, and she's already 3 months deep into her investment journey. She's the most financially aware 24-year-old her family has ever produced. Four people, 4 different decades, 4 completely different financial realities. And every single one of them fell into the exact same trap. Not a similar trap, not a loosely speaking the same trap, the exact same trap, just wearing different clothes depending on the era. By the end of this video, you'll know which version you're living right now, what the trap actually is. Before I name it, let me be clear. This has nothing to do with being bad with money. Most people who fall into this trap are actually pretty careful. They budget. They think before they spend. The trap is sneakier than that. At some point in every generation's story, the world around them defined what doing well was supposed to look like. A certain kind of home, a certain kind of lifestyle, a certain kind of experience. And without anyone sitting you down and spelling it out, you absorbed it. We all did. It seeped in through the people around you, the culture you grew up in, the things that got celebrated and admired. And when you could finally afford to live that version of success, you did. It felt like the natural next step. This isn't greed. This isn't carelessness. You were just following the unwritten rules your generation handed you. Rules nobody questioned because everyone around you is following them too. And here's what makes it so genuinely hard to see. It never feels wrong from the inside. It feels responsible. It feels like progress. So let's walk through each generation and find the exact moment those unwritten rules showed up, because once you see it in someone else's story, you'll start to see it in your own. Robert's trap. The house was the whole plan. Robert grew up watching his parents rent their entire lives. And in post-war America, owning a home was the ultimate signal that you'd made it. Stability, status, the American dream, wearing a white picket fence. So when Robert landed his first real job and the bank approved him for the biggest mortgage he could qualify for, he took it. Of course he did. That was the move. And in the 1980s, it actually made sense. Inflation was high. Property was appreciating. And that house genuinely would be worth more someday. It was. Robert's home is now worth 4 times what he paid for it. On paper, Robert is wealthy. But here's where it gets complicated. Robert is 68, and most of his net worth is locked inside 4 walls he still lives in. The pension he counted on evaporated when his company restructured in the 90s. He has savings, just not enough to fund 25 years of retirement comfortably. And selling the house means leaving the neighborhood he's called home for 40 years. The home wasn't the trap. The belief that the home was the whole plan, that was the trap. Robert spent decades maintaining the signal of wealth while quietly underfunding everything else. The arrival was real. The foundation underneath it had gaps. Karen's trap. Lifestyle creep and business casual. Karen's trap was quieter, and in some ways more insidious, because it didn't feel like one big decision. It felt like 100 small, reasonable ones. Gen X came of age during the rise of the dual-income household. They watched their parents and thought, we'll do better, we'll earn more, we'll have more. And they did earn more. That part worked. But every time Karen got a raise, and she got several, her life expanded to match it. Promotion at 32, upgraded the car. 6 figures at 38, moved to a bigger house. Kids hit high school, added the overseas vacation. Each decision made total sense. She could afford it. She'd earned it. This is lifestyle creep, and it's the boomer trap in business casual. The problem isn't that Karen spent money. The problem is that her expenses grew as fast as her income. Despite earning more than either of her parents ever did, her savings rate barely moved. The gap between what came in and what went out stayed almost exactly the same, just with bigger numbers. At 52, Karen looks financially successful. In some ways, she is. But she's also 10 years from retirement, and the math is tighter than it should be for someone who's been earning well for 2 decades. The arrival signal for Gen X was lifestyle. Nice things, nice experiences, a life that looked like success. And they delivered that signal every single month. On direct debit. Marcus's trap. Experiences as a substitute. If you're a millennial watching this, I need you to hear this first. The system genuinely moved against your generation in ways that weren't your fault. The 2008 financial crisis hit right when an entire cohort was supposed to be building their foundation. That's real. That matters. But here's the trap millennials walked into. And it makes complete sense, given everything they'd been through. When you can't afford the things that used to signal arrival, a house, a pension, real equity, you start spending on the things you can afford. For millennials, that meant experiences. Travel, restaurants, concerts, subscriptions, convenience, and the culture fully backed it. Spend on experiences, not things. You can't take money to the grave. Live your life. Every lifestyle brand, every think piece, every Instagram caption told millennials this was actually the enlightened approach to money. Marcus spent his late 20s and early 30s stacking memories. Beautiful ones, genuinely. But at 38, he has very little invested. No property, and a quiet anxiety about the future he manages by booking the next trip. The trap wasn't the experiences. The trap was using experiences as a substitute for building assets, while an entire cultural movement told him that was actually wisdom. The arrival signal for millennials became the lived life, the full passport, the story, and it was marketed so effectively that many never noticed it was still just a costume, a different one but serving the same purpose. Zoe's trap. Performing wealth instead of building it now, Zoe. And Zoe is fascinating because Gen Z is genuinely the most financially literate generation in history. They grew up watching finance content. They know what an index fund is at 19. They casually drop compound interest into conversation. You'd think they escaped the trap entirely. Not quite. Gen Z's version of the trap is the most visible one ever created because it lives online. The arrival signal isn't a house, a lifestyle, or a stamp-filled passport. It's an aesthetic. The fit, the tech setup, the apartment that photographs well, the brands that communicate. I have taste. I have money. I have arrived to an audience of thousands. And the cruel twist? Gen Z is doing this while investing. Zoe has a brokerage account. She puts $50 a month in. She's proud of it, and she should be. That's a real start. But she's also spending $200 a month on things whose primary function is how they look on her feed. The trap for Gen Z isn't ignorance, it's performance. They know the right language, but sometimes use it to perform wealth rather than build it. Posting about investing while the actual numbers stay small. Talking about financial freedom while the spending habits quietly contradict it. Zoe isn't doomed, not even close. She's 24 and already ahead of where Marcus was at her age. But the trap is there, set and waiting. Wearing a ring light and a carefully chosen background. How people actually escape it. Every generation has people who saw the trap and stepped around it. And when you look at what they did differently, it's almost always the same thing. They separated the signal from the substance. They consciously decided to look less wealthy than they were, so their actual wealth could grow faster. They drove the older car a few more years, stayed in the smaller house a little longer, skipped a few trips, resisted the aesthetic upgrade. And they put the difference somewhere that compounded. It's not complicated, but it runs against every social instinct we have, which is exactly why even smart, financially aware people fall into it. Here's what that looks like for each of them. Robert's version: keep the house, but also fund the retirement account aggressively. Don't go all in on one asset. Karen's version: one lifestyle upgrade per raise, bank the other half. Let income growth outpace lifestyle growth. Marcus's version: one big trip a year instead of 4. Put the difference into an index fund every month and don't think about it. Zoe's version: and she still has all the time in the world. Make the investing the thing she posts about, not the aesthetic. Build the actual number faster than she builds the look of the number. The rule, if you want one, is this: assets first, lifestyle second, every time. Not forever, just until the assets are doing enough work that the lifestyle's genuinely paid for. That's the move every generation that got it right figured out. Robert, Karen, Marcus, Zoe, none of them are bad with money. None of them are reckless. They all just did exactly what their generation taught them arrival was supposed to look like. And they prioritized looking arrived over being arrived. So here's the question I want to leave you with, and I genuinely mean this. Which version of the trap are you in right now? Is it the house that holds your entire net worth? The lifestyle that expanded with every pay raise? The experiences that felt like living but quietly replaced building? The aesthetic that performs wealth without quite creating it? Drop it in the comments. Not to be judged, but because the first step out of any trap is being able to name it out loud. And if this hit close to home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. They probably already know which generation they are.